Hello, BookTube, and welcome back to Dune in June, a BookTube event that started this year, in which we read Frank Herbert's masterpiece Dune in the month of June. The month of June is winding down. If you're following the time frame of Dune in June, you're already done with this book. And I've talked about it quite a bit. I made a couple of primer videos ahead of time to demystify this, to de-intimidate it. And then I fell into the habit early on in Dune in June of doing a chapter-by-chapter breakdown of this book, thinking I would do a few and that would get us all going and then we would just continue. But a great number of you have let me know that you would like the chapter-by-chapter breakdowns to continue. I certainly don't mind. I'm happy to talk about this book. It would be all summer. We would be doing this all summer if I do it every day. So that's what we're doing. I've backed into a read-along of Dune, which I've already done. I've done read-alongs of this book before, but never in this fine-grained detail. And last time we saw Duke Leto Atreides, who has been ordered by the Emperor to take over the planet Dune, even though he knows it's a trap, even though he knows his enemies, the Harkonnens, are going to strike against him with the Emperor's help, he still is defiant and wants to make a go of it for the sake of himself, for the sake of all of his people, for the sake of his teenage son, Paul, his heir. He has brought his whole household here. All of his top lieutenants, his War Master, Gurney Halleck, his Mentat assassin, Thufir Hawat, and also his lady, the mother of Paul Atreides, Jessica, the Lady Jessica, who is not his wife. She's not his duchess. She was trained by the Bene Gesserit in all sorts of para-supernatural abilities, and she has trained her son in some of those abilities, and she is also the love of Duke Leto's life. That is not feigned. But he has not made her his duchess. He is somewhat cynically left open that position so that other houses in the Imperium might think they could be nice to him in the chance that one of their daughters might become the Duchess of Atreides. Even though we get the strong impression that the Duke is never going to do that. He's left that open as a bargaining chip, but he's never going to take it. He adores Jessica. Which makes it all the worse that in the last chapter, at the end, after that staff meeting is over, the Duke goes to Thufir Hawat on his own. Thufir Hawat is his Mentat, which is kind of a human computer, but also he's in charge of house security and a million other things. So he's an indispensable man. The Duke goes to him in order to have a private conversation. And in that private conversation, Thufir Hawat very reluctantly reveals to the Duke that he and his men uncovered part of an intercepted message. It's just a fragment. It doesn't have any specific details, but it talks about betrayal in the Duke's household that will come from a source that is so beloved that the mere knowledge of the source will hurt the Duke worse than the betrayal itself. And in that scene, the one that we talked about last time, the inference is inescapable that will be the Lady Jessica. And the Duke is outraged. I know my woman. There's no chance that this is true. I trust her completely. To say nothing of the fact that she's had every opportunity to kill me if she wanted to before now. I don't believe it at all. However, Hawat doesn't trust Lady Jessica. He doesn't trust the Bene Gesserit. And he does trust this message. Between him and the Duke, they concoct an idea that Hawat will put heavy surveillance on Lady Jessica. He'll try to make it unobtrusive. What he thinks he's going to hide from Bene Gesserit, I don't know, but he'll try to make it unobtrusive in an attempt not to catch her in treachery, because the Duke refuses to believe that she is treacherous, but rather to catch who is trying to position her, catch who the enemy actually is buried in the household. And necessarily this means that this will happen without Jessica's knowledge. But is that necessary? I don't really know. That ends that scene, and then we move on to the scene that we're looking at today, which is just a conversation between the Duke and his son. That's all. Where the Duke confides in Paul this plan that he and Thufir Hawat have thought up, which is to let Jessica realize that she is not trusted, realize that she's being brooded about as a possible traitor, and realize or think that Duke Leto might put some stock in it. Even though that last part is absolutely not true. The Duke in this chapter that we're reading today tells his son, I want you to know this so that if anything happens to me, you can tell her that it was all a ruse designed to flush out a traitor. I never distrusted her, never for a minute. And this is insane. This is just crazy. The Bene Gesserit are well able to dissemble. They're well able to act a lie. And the Duke knows this. And Paul actually says, well, why are you telling me? If you won't tell her, why are you telling me? And the Duke's lame answer is that his enemies won't watch Paul when it comes to this. That he won't reveal the secret because they won't be looking at him. Whereas they would be watching Jessica for, I guess, any indication that she knows that word has been intercepted. When A, that's crazy. Thufir Hawat knows he hasn't exactly been the soul of discretion so far in this book, and Paul is a boy. You would trust, the Duke would trust Lady Jessica long before he would trust either one of those two. Long before. She would actually be better at keeping a secret than either one of them. But then again, this continues my laundry list of issues with Thufir Hawat, why he would come up with this plan, why, as a mentat, as a man, sure, he doesn't like Jessica, he doesn't trust the Bene Gesserit, but as a mentat, wouldn't he be able to see that his dislike and distrust of the Bene Gesserit is causing him to impair one of the most efficient people around the Duke, who is Lady Jessica? Keeping her in the dark about this impairs her effectiveness. Surely a mentat would know that, but it's worse than that. It's also a detail from the last chapter, where when the Duke and Thufir Hawat are arguing about whether or not Jessica could actually be a traitor, Thufir Hawat goes on about how, we don't know anything about her background. We bought her when the sisterhood said they don't know her bloodlines, that she was an orphan. How do we know that she wasn't an orphan of the Atreides? Maybe one of our raiding parties or a planetary pacification team or something like that killed her parents. How would we know if she isn't harboring a long-standing resentment against you? When you read that line, you think, well, you're supposed to know. You're supposed to know that. You're not only the Duke's leading counter-espionage figure, but also a mentat. Surely you would not allow someone who might be harboring a lifelong grudge against Duke Leto Atreides to take his bed. Surely you wouldn't allow that. What kind of vetting did Hawat do on the Lady Jessica if he didn't do that? If he didn't do at least that? However you want to slice his inadequacy, the Duke goes along with his plan. I don't understand that at all. Of course, it's necessary to enhance the drama and also to make the plot work. It's necessary that House Atreides be working at least as much against itself as the Harkonnens. They can't be on their top game all trusting each other, or they would have sensed the trap and evaded it. The trap that's coming, and evaded it. So I understand that it's important for the plot, but that's all this scene is. It's Paul's father telling him, I want to confide this to you so that you know I don't distrust your mother. I'm going to act like I do, but I don't. And the other thing that happens in the chapter is that the Duke gives vent to a whole bunch of self-pity and depression in front of Paul, things he absolutely has not shown to anyone. He says in this chapter, I need someone I can say these things to. I'm not sure. First, I'm not sure that you do. And second, if you do, I'm not sure that your 15-year-old son is the person to do it with. But that's the whole of the chapter. It's just that. But a very quick conversation. That's it. Setting us up for the next chapter, which is epic. So that we don't have to do a long video for every one of these things. There's not much to this chapter. It's just that. It's yet another one-on-one conversation between Paul and his father. Now seen a couple of those. So we'll wrap this up for now, and we'll come back next time. Thank you.